Each and every one of our hearts here today, please God, who is our rock. As a child, Harriet Tubman was a fascinating figure in history for me. Here was a woman who was born into slavery, beaten, down, and oppressed in unimaginable ways, who suffered a traumatic head injury at the hand of a white overlord who was angry. A head injury that would plague her with seizures and narcolepsy. She would pass out and just be unconscious for the rest of her life. And yet she had the courage herself to stand up and walk away, run away, and escape from that life of slavery and abuse. But it didn't end there. If that's all that she had ever done, none of us would know her name. Harriet Tubman turned around when she made it to freedom, and she went back into the land of slavery because she had family there. And she went back, and she found her family, and she let them out of slavery. But she didn't stop there. She turned around, and she went back again to lead more people out of slavery. And more. She went back again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again, each time putting her own life at risk, risking the chance that she might be captured, beaten, or even killed. Harriet Tubman went back 19 times and led over 300 people out of slavery. She led so many people out of slavery that she became known as Moses. Moses, in the Bible, 3,500 years earlier than her, led an entire nation out of slavery, out of the land of Egypt. She led her people out of the land of the south of slavery into the north above the Mason-Dixon line, and ultimately also into Canada when that became too dangerous. Harriet Tubman knew something that many people either have forgotten or have ignored. What would possess a woman to risk so much? What would possess her to risk her life, her limb, her freedoms? What would possess her to risk all that? What was so important to her that made her willing to do all those things? She knew the value of freedom. She knew how important it was for people to be free. She knew how valuable it was for her and for others who might not have the courage. She was willing to risk her own freedoms and her own survival, that they might know true freedom. We celebrate Abraham Lincoln's emancipation of the black people in our country. We celebrate that when he did that in 1863. We celebrate that. But today, we live in a world where people willingly enter into slavery, where people choose to be enslaved in very subtle ways. Some of them to extreme things like drugs and alcohol. They're enslaved by their addictions. But there's a much more socially acceptable slavery that many people in this church, in our community, and in our country, a socially acceptable form of slavery. We call that slavery debt. Debt is a form of slavery that is alive and well in our society. The passage that we read for you from Proverbs says that the borrower is slave to the lender. How is it that somebody is enslaved by their debt? What is slavery? Well, slavery means you don't have the ability to choose to do what you want. You aren't free to go where you want, or maybe wear the clothes that you would like, or serve in the ways that you would. Slavery is a confining thing. It means you have shackles, manacles, either physically or mentally. As I was growing up, I heard this phrase, and I don't know how many of you have ever heard this, but I can't afford to be sick. Have you ever heard it? Maybe you said that yourself. I can't afford to be sick because, why? There's so much pressure on me to make money that being sick is not an option. It's slavery to our bills and to our debt. We have entered in, as a culture, we bought into the lie that debt is normal and healthy and acceptable. The Bible says that the borrower is slave to the lender. Unless you agree that slavery is acceptable and normal and healthy, I don't think that we should be condoning debt. Now, I'm not saying that all debt everywhere is evil. What I'm saying is that when you incur a debt, you take on an obligation that limits your freedoms, that stops you from being totally free. The other thing that I'm saying is it's not necessary. We are not required by God, by any laws, or by any logical compulsion to enter into overriding or overabundant debt. And I'm going to show you today that true financial freedom is possible. True financial freedom, as Crown Ministry defines it, is when your retirement is fully funded, your bills are covered, your debt is gone, your obligations are met, children's colleges are funded or paid for, and they're off and growing and running. They're off on life. You've met your obligations, you've met your financial obligations. You owe no one anything, and you do not need to receive a regular income from your work. You may be scratching your head and saying, "Dad, I think you're a little crazy this morning." Because when I told somebody this was my goal, financially, true financial freedom is my goal, and what that is, I told somebody here in this church, they looked at me like I was crazy and said, "What do you mean?" Like I was speaking a foreign language. "What do you mean you want to work and be able to work and not be paid for it? Like, what is that? How does that work?" I thought it was crazy. But there's a way to get there. I'm not saying it's an easy road. I'm not saying it's a short road. In fact, it's not either of those things. It's long and it's hard. But Harriet Tubman realized that the road to freedom was paved with difficulty. It was not an easy road, and it was not a quick road. And she was willing to take that road again and again and again because she knew the value of freedom. The road to true financial freedom is a long and challenging road, but there is a path that can get us there. And I'm going to be borrowing heavily from Crown Financial Ministries' roadmap to true financial freedom, which you can purchase on their website, crown.org, and you can follow it, and it has great principles, and it will have everything that I'm saying. Well, some of the things that I'm saying, and it will have some other things as well, and you can do that. I'm going to give you an appetizer for what you will find there. And we're going to walk that road today. We're going to actually walk part of that road today. There are 6 steps on the road to true financial freedom. We're going to look at the first 3 today. And 2 weeks from now, we're going to come back and we're going to look at the last 3. We're going to see how we get there. So let's look at step number 1. Destination number 1. All right? This is for the people that are just beginning. Goal number 1 is to have $1,000 in an emergency fund. All right? Have $1,000 in an emergency fund, a rainy day fund. Something happens, you have some money on hand to pay. The car needs a big repair, you have $1,000 to pay for that. The water heater breaks, you have $1,000 to help cover those expenses. $1,000 in an emergency fund is the first goal. Why? Because if you don't have $1,000, where will you get that money? Credit card, plastic, right? You will use your credit card or some other form of debt. The slave is borrower to the lender. You will use some other form of debt to pay for that emergency need. So, destination 1 is have $1,000 so that you don't need to turn to the plastic. So that you can pay for that emergency when it comes up and not be slave to the lender. Proverbs 21:20 says, "The wise man saves for the future, but the fool spends everything he has." It's a biblical principle. The wise man saves for the future. You know things are going to happen. If you own a car, if you live in a house, you know that things go wrong. If you're a human being, you know that things go wrong and that you will need money. The wise man will prepare for that and save. Destination 1. $1,000 in an emergency fund in case of emergency when something like this happens. The second part of Destination 1 is to commit to tithing. We talked about tithing with the kids in the junior sermon, what it is, giving 1/10 of all that God has given us. It's a biblical principle. Throughout the Old and New Testament, tithing is mentioned over 49 times. I was able to find 49 times when I was looking. And tithing is giving 1/10 of what we have to God's temple, the worship of God. Now that's not everything, but that is the basic starting principle, tithing. So Destination 1 is save $1,000 and to commit to tithing. Destination 2, pay off the credit cards. Big one. Credit cards are monsters when it comes to debt. Credit cards have the highest interest rate, and they're hard to get rid of once you start getting down that track. Pay them off each month. Destination 2 is to pay off the credit cards. I'm going to need 2 volunteers. Thanks, Brian and Brian. Thank you guys for volunteering. Come on up. I love my volunteer system. I don't think so today. That was wise. That was wise. All right. Should we put your knees to work? You may have this one. Come on over to the side. All right. This jug represents true financial freedom. Ryan has committed himself to that journey to reach true financial freedom. Because he wants to serve the Lord wholeheartedly without needing a paycheck, and he wants to be there for God. And to reach true financial freedom, he has got to fill his jug full. When he reaches the top, he has reached true financial freedom. With this cup represents his hard work and his labor. And the water in the cup is the income that he gets for that labor. There you go. There you go. Okay, so, and week after week, Ryan's going to pour his hard work into his goal of reaching true financial freedom. And Ryan, we're going to time you to see just how long it takes you to reach true financial freedom. Ryan, you're just going to hold that jug right there so people can see it. And you're going to just fill that jug. And we're going to time you. Are you ready? And when you need to refill, you just, right there's your, all right? Ready, set, go.